Hi, my name is Sally Barnard, an artist, author, and spiritual experiencer. Welcome to Call Me Zena, a true story into the spiritual realms. Join me as I sit and discuss the journey of self-discovery and awakening with the help of my spirit guides. It's time to trust your intuition. This is your inner knowings. Through questions and points of conversation, I can help others feel empowered. With the ability to touch people's past lives, I help others connect and not feel alone. Sit with me and call in live, 888-994-4995. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sally from Call Me Zena. I hope you're all listening to my show and will enjoy it. We're going to change things around a little bit. I was going to talk about UFOs in the very beginning and then go after the commercial into past lives, but my guest hasn't quite shown up yet, so we're going to start with past lives. I just want to open this up with anybody that feels, please call in. If you feel like you feel that you've been somewhere before and yet you know in this lifetime you haven't, but you feel very familiar, please call in with your questions and I'll be very happy to answer them. Okay, I think I'm just going to open it up to the studio right now.
Sally,
yes.
Past lives. Tell us more about the definition of why they occur and what's the meaning behind all of it.
Okay, I think past lives has a significance. For each one of us, there may be a different reason. What I'm feeling now is that we have had many, many different lifetimes. But what is relevant, and people that have been watching my show are now familiar with my spirit guide who came in here with, his name was Aldo, who did recall many, many of his lifetimes. But he did tell me one thing: what we bring into this lifetime is important from another lifetime. We can't bring in all our lifetimes, but we all bring in what is relevant for this lifetime. And that's very important because we're on a journey and there are many things that we can maybe see that may have happened in another life that we're repeating. So we want to know more of why we're doing this. So it's a form of karma, if you want to say that, but we will bring in many. Okay, I'm going to interrupt just for a second, but I see my guest has arrived. But we'll continue with the past lives after the first half hour is going to be on UFOs.
Because
a little bit confusing right now,
Sally,
I'm sorry.
I wanted to ask, does UFOs and past lives, they have a common occurrence?
They do, and I'm very glad that you said that, because here, for me to change like in the middle of this conversation into UFOs, I think there had to be a reason for that. So I just want to introduce Russ Johnson, my guest for the first half hour of this show, which we are now going to switch around and turn it into UFOs. I feel, and as I had mentioned to you on the phone before, Russ, that
yes,
I have some sort of a calling to talk about this. It is tied in with spirituality, but I have had so many of what now I realize is abductions. But if you would just, which we had said before on the telephone, if you could just maybe talk about some of the statistics on UFOs that we were talking about, how many people actually have been abducted, which the government are now coming forward a little bit with it.
Right. The estimate is for the United States alone, about 8 million people out of the 350 million people here. That's the estimate. And they also say that about 80% of the people here in the United States or worldwide have some experiences with one degree or another with the UFO, even seeing one, knowing somebody who has been abducted, or having some knowledge of the whole process, if you will. Now, let me ask you something. You are an intuitive, clairvoyant, psychic. The big question is, a lot of people ask, now that they are here, how many people are here because they choose to be here at this very time?
I think right now, if you want to call it a new era, I think we're coming into a new part of our own civilization. We're bringing in more of what could have happened in the past, which is beginning to turn around, if you want to call it, in our planet, so that they're understanding a little bit more. As you said, so many people have been abducted, but so many people don't know that it's an abduction, including myself.
Right.
I mean, I went for 16, 17 years without realizing that I had been abducted. I had a certain amount of memory over this, but I didn't really know what it was coming from. So I think it's important to just open people's mind. I just do want to say to my regular viewers that this is not going to always be the topic on this show, but I think it's important that we talk about it today. So we will have another show which we're going to start talking about too, that people can call in. But anybody that can relate to this, please give me a call right now, because Russ, you know, I believe you know a little bit more than I do actually on the subject.
Less than
I know
you
you're
do.
going to say that, but I feel that I wanted to say that to you.
I'm
Okay.
a student.
No, you're not.
I'm learning.
But that's okay. That's okay.
Okay, so you say that lately your memory has been coming back about your abductions. The thing that most people have to know, that many people have been abducted, and as you just indicated, they don't know they have been abducted, because the big deal is when you look at the abduction and all the science of that, the minds are erased. The mind is a frequency, and it has been erased.
Yes.
Why would they erase the mind?
I
you
think there's a couple of reasons for
Okay.
that. This is just my own personal
Right.
view on it. I believe that when this was all happening to me, and I could accept the astral, that we have an astral plane where we fly around. I don't know at that time, 18 years ago, if I could have accepted that I was being abducted.
Right.
And that goes for many, many people. I believe that the majority of abductions are not necessarily to frighten us, but they do wipe our memory. My memory is coming back, and that's why I feel I have. It's kind of a calling for my show to talk about this a little bit,
Right.
because I'm not the only person. As you said, the statistics are very high with people being abducted. We don't necessarily remember. But maybe with what I might talk about and the questions that you might ask me, that I do have memory now that I am recalling, that I think it's important for our listeners to know a little bit about this.
There are many motion pictures dealing with abductions, one of which you might want to watch, Whitney Strieber, Communion. That's a motion picture that's been out, I don't know, 10 years, maybe more, but Whitney Strieber has written a book. The other motion picture that you might want to watch to give you an idea of an abduction that most people, well, anyway, Fire in the Sky is another motion picture.
I'm not necessarily familiar,
Yeah,
but
about Walton was abducted
Okay,
in the woods
okay.
with
Yes.
6 other people.
Yes.
And he was, when they took him, he was gone for about 5 days. And the other 5 who were with him were accused of doing something, killing him or something.
Right.
But he was abducted, and he was on a spaceship, but he came back. And so that was all cleared up now. But Fire in the Sky is another one. So
I think, we can mention movies, we can mention a lot of things. I think it's very important, Russ, because, we can have a conversation here, just the two of us talking about it to everybody.
Sure.
That it might just trigger a memory for someone. And this is where it's very important, because most of the time, if we don't know what's happening.
True.
But if we have some memory, even if it's just in our subconscious,
True.
that something different is happening, that we're visiting other places, maybe then we can start to actually form a kind of disclosure to people, so that they're aware of maybe these things are going on. They are going on, as far as I can see.
it's a lot of research over the
It's
past
a
60,
lot,
70
yes,
years.
It is,
Yeah.
yes.
Even one that was down in Nome, Alaska, I don't know whether you watched that or not, it's called The Fourth Kind. It was a true story that happened in Nome, Alaska.
Well, the strange thing about this whole thing is this happened to me about 18, 19 years ago. I wasn't even really interested in abductions, but something in my mind kept saying, never occurred to me. I thought I was just projecting myself to different places. That became very real to me. But today I see so many things now that, although I didn't realize it, because I hadn't got anybody, I wasn't listening to the programs, that hopefully that now I can talk about a little bit to open people's minds. it sounds strange, and I understand that. But if you think about it, we're not alone, and this is very important. So if they want to take us somewhere, well, it's not necessarily with our permission, and I see that too, but they do take us.
Yeah. A lot of people have said, Dr. Mack, he has a book out dealing with this whole subject about abductions, and he was a professor at, I think, Temple University. He was a PhD, Harvard graduate in psychoanalysis and all that. So that's another book, and that's some other material. But I'm saying that some people have said that people who are abducted on a regular basis, even from childhood through adulthood to the end of their lives, because sometimes they follow a generation, follow that person throughout their lives, right?
Right,
that's
correct.
documented.
Yes.
Why? Okay, here's a big question. Why do you think they decided to come down and abduct us? I mean, now, they do, when they abduct you, whether in your bedroom, in your automobile, or wherever you are, and if you're asleep, they can take you through the window, through the door, without opening the door, or through the walls.
Right.
Do you know how they do that?
Well, unfortunately, in this 3D dimension, we can't figure that out.
Oh, I see.
However, as we get more involved with this and we get more in tune and spiritually, we realize that anything really is possible.
Right.
I've had many messages over the last 18 years, and I say to myself, well, how do I give these answers? It's hard to explain, but it's a form of telepathy.
Right.
So what do we know really about telepathy? But there is so much more. And the same applies to abductions too, Russ, because we say, in fact, when I started to travel, and this is kind of funny in a way, I was flying, but I didn't understand it, but I know I was going to different places. You know what bothered me more than anything when I woke up? My fan in my room. I said to myself, well, if I'm flying, isn't this going to cut my head in half? I mean, we don't know. What we don't know, we don't know.
True.
So yes, anything that sounds really strange, it can happen.
Yeah.
It can happen.
Yeah. Emerald Smith, I know you know him, and David Wilcox and Corey Good and Gaia. For most people who don't follow this, what would you suggest they begin to look at? What motion picture, what television program, what books?
Well,
where can you go
I
to look at
feel
some
that
of
if
this?
you have an interest, follow your interest. I mean, if for nothing else, even if you don't believe it, just read a little bit about it. There is a lot of literature out there,
What
as
book
you
would
know.
you recommend?
And if just even go into the internet itself and
Okay.
put in abductions, aliens, and who should I read? They'll give you a lot
Of
of
course.
answers on people that have written. I mean, people that are high up in society here have talked about abductions. I just feel that I have some sort of an obligation to come forward with
Okay.
this. No, I'm not going to do this every time. Obviously, as you know, on my show, we may do a different show together.
Right.
But just for my viewers that have been tuning in and following me, keep an open mind. If you're listening to me anyway, you probably got an open mind at this point. To my viewers, just read a little bit about it. It's, if nothing else, it's very, very interesting.
And very important.
It's
Yeah.
important.
Because if you have been abducted, there's, in every state in the United States, even worldwide, it's called the MUFON Society, the Mutual UFO Network. So you can always Google MUFON, M-U-F-O-N, and there's a chapter in your state, there's a chapter in every country in the world. So just kind of Google that. And you might want to contact those people, and if you think you were abducted, just tell them your story.
Thank you very much,
Right,
Russ. You
yeah.
know what I'm going to do at this
Right,
point? Because
sure.
we do have a couple of people in
Okay,
the studio.
okay.
Let's see if they have any questions.
Okay.
Do you have any questions in the studio here about abductions? Are they here? I can't
Yes,
necessarily.
we're here. And the question about abductions, I want to know, why is it that some of us remember them, some of us do not remember them, and some of us are here to tell the story about them, which is on top of everything else?
That's interesting, actually. You know, it's all about timing. If I was doing this show about 7 years ago, first of all, I had not met you. I don't believe anything is coincidental. So I wasn't necessarily ready to come out with this. I think it's just a feeling that you get. If you feel that you've had some sort of out-of-body experience and you weren't on on Earth, on this planet, then kind of look it up. And there is, the good thing about today is there's so much material out there on the internet, as you know, Russ.
What
right?
have you been watching lately in terms of?
I've just been watching, it's kind of, Gaia, there's many programs on Gaia. I listen to the Secret Space program, which has drawn my interest because I'm interested in that. For someone else, or even maybe for yourself, it might be a different program. Go with your intuition and then you'll find it. We're able to do that today, which of course we couldn't do many years ago.
There are a lot of programs, like you say, Gaia, Ancient Aliens, Cosmic Connections, Beyond Belief with George Norrie. But anyway, years ago, it was a guy named Art Bell. He had millions and millions and millions and millions of people listening to him all.
He did, yes.
All throughout the night. As a matter of fact, he just passed a couple of years ago, but he was very, very popular. So if you go to Google Art Bell, Coast to Coast, late at night, you listen to some of his programs that he did late at night.
And that's actually interesting for me that you brought that up, because
Right.
many years ago when I didn't know what was ahead of me and that I
Right.
would understand or even be aware of this conversation that we're having now, thinking
Right.
that I could talk about abductions, I did used to listen to Art Bell
Oh, you did?
sometimes, yes, and I
Okay.
found him very interesting. Didn't necessarily believe it, whereas many of our viewers today can probably relate to, but I did listen. So I think just listening is very, very important. Do we have another question in the studio here?
I just want to follow up on
Oh,
that.
sure.
Since he passed, George Norrie has taken his place, and he has a program called Beyond Belief. So if you go to
Thank you,
Google
Russ.
that,
Yeah,
and people
yes.
can watch Beyond Belief with
Thank
George
you.
Norrie,
Yes.
N-O-R-R-I.
That's important. I mean, we can sit here and discuss many,
Yeah,
many
right,
things, and I
right.
know that you're very familiar with a lot of the things, as I am too. But I think it's not just us talking.
Right.
There is so much to back us up with this conversation.
Okay, why
right?
would they, if the aliens, be it the Greys or the Reptilians or the Nordics or whomever, or the Palladians, whatever, there's so many out there, why would they come and abduct us, since we kind of low on the totem pole, if you will,
Okay.
in terms of our technology and in terms of our constructs of believing about or dealing with other entities called aliens throughout the universe?
I feel that's a question that I've heard many, many times,
Okay.
actually, which is good because I don't mind answering.
Okay.
As far as I know, and from what I feel, is that they are taking a lot of interest in our planet. This is really important because what happens here is going to affect actually the other planets in a way, so that we're, if you want to say, I think we're a big experiment here. We have a lot of different people here and they're very aware of that. We're just beginning to open up even to this process. There's so many things that we don't know that we're getting curious about. And curious is a good word because we are getting curious. So people are getting more interested in the topic, but they want us to proceed in the right direction. This is what I feel I'm being channeled right now. So they are and have been for many, many years abducting us. They wipe our memory. Even as I used to say in the very beginning when I first began to understand this, if I'm with somebody like my partner or my husband, why is he not being able to see me being taken? But because they're so advanced, they can also wipe your partner's memory
True.
too. That makes perfect sense to me. So we're only going to really contact this and understand it when we're ready. It's a kind of like a safety device that we have built in. When we're ready, we will begin to understand. I'm ready, so that's why I'm coming out with this today. I am ready. If people don't understand it, I totally understand that, but it's something that we should go little by little, as my guide used to say, but it's very important to put it out there, Russ.
Okay. Oh, can we talk about your guy just a little bit?
Sure.
Aldo, okay. Where was he from, and why did he come into your life? Why do you think it was important for him to come and coach you so that you can be a spokesperson for the disclosure, if you will?
I'm happy that you brought him up because he's been a very big part of my life and
Okay.
still is today. He came into my life about 19 years ago. He did not tell me anything. He knew me for a year. He was at my place of work. But when I started to either astral project or I was abducted, I don't know. They were both it happened to me. I know what I had seen, and he then presented himself to me in this lifetime. 1 year after seeing me but never approaching me, he approached me at that particular time. I was beginning to open up, and I was ready. We're not all ready. We have times that we are. And he continued on my journey for the last 18 years of telling me many, many things. The only thing which I find extremely interesting, and I'm glad you brought this up, is that he told me there was something that I would find out that I didn't know yet.
Oh.
I had always thought, and I didn't know much about astral projection, that I was flying to all these different places. He didn't tell me that I had been abducted.
Oh, I
but
see.
he knew it, but it had to come from me first. So that's how he became very important in my life. He passed away last year and is still very much with me in spirit.
Okay, well, you say that you have been here more than once. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely.
How many times do you think you've been incarnated on Earth?
From what I can tell you, I'm going to say up to 1,000 times.
Oh, come on, that's a
yes,
lie.
I do believe that. I mean, this is just my personal feeling.
Is that right?
But I don't believe that it's just once or twice. I'm going to go back to my own feelings on this. If you'd asked me this 20, 30 years ago, I would have said, oh, if there's anything, maybe one time. But over the years, I'm beginning to understand we come back many, many times.
So you saying that in addition to you coming back and forth, why? Why so many times? What do you think?
Learning our lessons, Russ. We learn a lesson.
So
it's important because we've chosen, this is interesting, and I
Okay.
like this too. It's not
Okay.
necessarily to do with aliens, but
it is.
it's an interesting question, which I like. That does relate to aliens
Of
a little bit
course.
because they're here to help us. Not all, but many of them are. We come back to learn. We come back, we chose this. So each time we come back into an incarnation here on Earth, and there's been other places too, we choose what we want to learn to further our so-called education, if you want to say it, because if you want to look at this as a school, and eventually we graduate, we don't graduate completely because we go on somewhere else, but we can't go to the next step until we fully understand what this is all about. And that does include species from another planet.
But why would you come back and forth? If in your memory, if you remember any of it all?
Because we wipe our memory. If we came
Okay.
back knowing all this, what in the
Do
world
you
are we going to
remember
learn?
any life that you lived before?
Yes, I have a very prominent lifetime, which my guide did tell me about, but
Okay,
he
tell
didn't
us
lead
about
me
it.
into a...
Tell us about
Well,
it. I'm
again,
curious.
you're leading me into something I'm not sure if I particularly want to,
Oh, I
talk
see.
about, but that's okay.
Okay.
I believe I was from the Renaissance Center. He knew me from that. I was a prominent figure in that lifetime. I
see.
lived in a palace. That's about maybe all I really want to kind of divulge right now.
Okay.
But he was my advisor in that lifetime. And he told me, he didn't tell me, I asked him because I could see things from that lifetime. And I was describing things to him. But when he gave me the answers, let's just take maybe a studio, a room that I was in. I'd say, I see the desk there, I see this there. And he would proceed to tell me what was in that room, and it was what I could see. Plus, I was drawing. How did I draw from
Right.
other lifetime if I wasn't in it?
Okay. So that's interesting. So you've been, whomever that was, that in that lifetime, do you remember any specificity, anything specific from that lifetime?
Yeah, I was in control of a country. It was too much, too much for me to
Talk about?
to talk. Well, it became that I didn't want any more part of it for many. I came in. I have been in from the 15th century a couple of times since then. But what I did is that I'd had enough of the responsibility of controlling a country. I didn't want it. Now, viewers are going to say, what is she talking about? Which I totally understand, but I feel it. I feel it. So what I did, it was kind of dormant, and I just came in just as, I'm not going to say a regular person because we're all important, but I came in without that responsibility. But in this particular lifetime, I needed to wake up with all the things that were going on. And he knew that I knew this from that lifetime. So he proceeded to ask me questions that drew me out, to tell him that I remember certain things from
The
that
other
lifetime.
people who may be going through the same kind of experiences
Yes.
that you've been through. So he came to you and coached you because he wanted you to do what? What did he want you to do?
He wanted me to start to remember, to wake up. We call it a dream, to wake up from this dream.
And to do what with that?
To help other people,
Okay.
just as I'm doing right now.
see.
I mean, I wouldn't
see.
be sitting on this show if I didn't feel so passionate about telling people that if you've had any of my experiences that you're listening to right now, you are not alone. I haven't had all the experiences, but I've had quite a bit. So just know that I'm still here, I'm still normal. It's hard to not, I need to be normal to spread this word, but it's not easy. But it's important,
Okay.
Russ. It's very
So
important.
he was in your life for 17 years.
18, yeah.
Oh,
17,
18,
yeah.
okay. That's a long time. But you only recently have come out for television and radio and being interviewed and considering writing a book. You have another book. You're writing another one at this time. So you think he wanted you to be a spokesperson at this time to help others?
Yes, absolutely, which he did tell me because his anonymity, he didn't want to be known in this lifetime.
Oh, I see.
But he wanted to pass on his information to me, which was really important. And I see that today. Of course, I'm not here to be able to have the conversation with him, but I feel that he comes to me a lot and is helping me even right now to spread this message. I don't expect everybody, even my listeners, to understand. I'm not going to say believe because I am telling what's happened to me, but to understand all this. I didn't. It's a lot to take in. We're on what we call a 3D dimension here, which is kind of low. So in order to expand our consciousness, we need to hear some of these things just to open up a little bit to there is much more. It may not even happen in this lifetime, but what we learn in this lifetime, and from what he used to tell me, we don't lose that. It goes into what we call a super consciousness. So when we're ready, it may be dormant, as mine was for a couple of lifetimes after the 15th century. It's still there. So I have, because I've kind of trained myself now, the ability to bring it forward into this lifetime. It takes practice. It's not easy. But the most important thing is to believe it. Just believe there is so much more. That is the key to this. If you close your mind, you're not going to understand it. But just take little things of what I am saying even here right now on the show and believe that maybe you don't have to understand all that I'm talking about, but just understand that maybe there is more in this world than what we see, more than meets the eye. That's what they're telling me right now.
Okay.
And even if you think you're going crazy, that's okay. I certainly did think I was going crazy.
You did?
Yeah, absolutely.
What did you think?
Well, I'm traveling to different planets. What do you think I thought?
I don't know.
But I began to accept it because I did have my guide here. So he said to me, this is normal. Did I believe everything he was telling me that was normal? No.
No?
But it was still continued when I used to go so-called to sleep. I was traveling. So it opened my mind. I don't expect, especially the viewers that are listening, although if you're listening to this show, and this is really important, you guys have an interest. Just think about maybe some of the things that have happened to you. Maybe you can relate. Please call into the show and ask me. Thank you.
So you help people who may say, well, I think that something happened to me, and I'm beginning to have these memories, and they call you. How can you help them?
I can only go, because I am actually channeling, although, I'm not, you may not be aware of it, so they're helping me. But call in and I will answer any question. There is no stupid question. A question is a question. If you feel that something like, I'm going to say strange or out of the ordinary has happened to you, ask me. I may not have the answer, but I'm here to listen. So please call in.
Mm-hmm. If there's so many people out there doing research, as you already know. You have Stephen Greer. Can you tell me a little bit about Stephen Greer? He's been doing this for 40 years, at least 40 years. He was a physician, head of an emergency room in a hospital, stepped away 40 years ago. Let's talk about him a little bit.
Yes, and this is what gives this, the subject, I'm going to say, credibility, Russ, because it's important. These people are not just, you know, I don't necessarily have to have a name for myself that I was whatever I am. It happened to me. But the people that may have a position more than I did, that may be within the government, a physician or someone that you might say, well, oh my gosh, if it happened to them, let's hear what they have to say, have come forward today. Gaia, and I have no affiliation with Gaia whatsoever. It's a TV program. Please, if you can, it is a subscription, but listen, or YouTube, you don't have to, which you can get for free, okay? Go in and listen. These are very credible people that are talking about it. Doctors, people that have been abducted or have an interest and have happened to them, that have had close encounters or even near-death experiences, which because I was out of my body, I had what we would call a near-death experience, but I had it many times. These are credible people. So it's not just me coming out with it. Please listen, go into Gaia, go into YouTube. If you have an interest, and hopefully after my show you might, just look these people up.
And you always can Google the name Stephen Greer, G-R-E-E-R.
And there's many, which is very important, but if they just Google people that have had experiences, physicians
Certainly.
Or members of the government, it'll come up on Google.
Right.
So,
and you've watched Billy Carson, have you seen it?
Yes, he's amazing. He's had a lot, yes.
He's written a book, the Emerald Tablets, the book.
Many.
And about 15 different languages, the number one bestseller so far.
Yes.
So Billy Smith, you can Google him, and he's out there.
Yes.
David Wilcock, a very accomplished person, right? He's been researching this for 40 or 50 years.
You know, it's not all about just us trying to make the credibility here, which
no, but it's important.
But it's important.
It's important.
It's important to see these people that have come forward, if you want to call them whistleblowers, whatever you want to call them, it doesn't matter. It's very, very important for people. Yes. I think we're going to break for a commercial. Thank you. We'll be back on the other side of the commercial. I always say thank you.
Call Me Zena is the telling of Sally Barnard. Born in London, England at the end of the Second World War, she came to the U.S. in 1979. A mother of two and grandmother of four, she settled in Florida and worked in real estate. While going through a difficult time in her life, she was admitted into a hospital overnight in December of 2005. While settling back into her life, she began having vivid dreams and documenting them. By the third dream, a lady gave her a message to draw. With no artistic background or interest in art or history, Sally listened to her dreams and grabbed paper and crayons. Today, she has over 150 pieces of inspiring art and poetry. This book follows her journey and interpretations of these messages. She describes in detail how she's able to astral project and who she has met along her travels, including her spirit guides. This book will show you how anything is possible with an open mind. These events have changed Sally's life's direction, and this book will show you how to change yours. Purchase Call Me Zena on Amazon today.
This world, this life, this illusion. What is going on, we ask? What is happening? Why not take time and see what is happening? This world as we know it, it seems so real, and yet so far away from where we've come. Corruption, greed, anger, power, revenge. Please wake up. We can change what is around us. How, we may ask. Learn to go back to where we were. Then we will have the clues. Then we can change and go forward. Please take the time. Do not fall into the game which we have put upon ourselves. We can change. We can make a difference. We have the power, each and every one of us. Go in peace. Go with love. Go as one. Zena. You have been watching Call Me Zena with your host, Sally Barnard. As an artist, author, and spiritual experiencer, know that you could always seek me out for resources. Visit artbarnard.com today. Now, back to the show. Well, we're back again with Russ Johnson and our studio audience. Okay, I have difficulty seeing our studio audience because the cameras are on.
I understand.
Sally, you actually have a question from Steve.
Okay.
Did your psychic abilities become enhanced after you were abducted?
Absolutely. I didn't realize it at the time, but yes, they certainly did. I knew, I wasn't sure I was an empath, but what was happening is I was getting feelings. I could feel what other people were feeling. It was new to me because I didn't completely understand it, but it was after my beginning of my abductions that I began to understand things. I was also getting premonitions too, which I feel is very important because I had some really vivid premonitions. I didn't know the timing on these things, but they all came about. Even if it was 1 year later, I saw many things. So yes, they did get enhanced.
Here's a big one. The Pentagon has just released a couple things. 6 months ago, they said, hey, listen, we have these little things called Tic Tacs, right? And 60 Minutes did a story on that. Why do you think that was disclosed at that time? Because for the last 70 years, 80 years or more, the government says, what? Aliens, abductions? What are you guys talking about? Something's wrong with you people, right?
I didn't actually see 60 Minutes, but you're telling me they were showing things that,
right.
Yes, because it's coming out into the main media today. Because they are seeing many things. Pilots, I mean, people that have gone to space, that have gone to, they're coming forward with these things. Disclosure is very, very important because otherwise there's going to be mass hysteria here. And this is one of the reasons that I feel that we should be disclosing this, Ross.
Yeah, you think mass hysteria? I mean, I know that back in 1938, if people want to Google this, that Orson Welles, he did a program on radio out of New York, and people were frightened, terribly frightened, extremely so that people said, we won't put it, he was told not to do any more programs on aliens and alien abductions and War of the Worlds. It was War of the Worlds that was called in. But that's 1938. Fast forward, we've had in 1947, the Roswell crash, and many other crashes since then, right? And we have had astronauts to go to the moon, some of whom have come back and say, well, when we went to the moon, we saw another alien spaceship there, right? Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
So that's all out there now. So the government now, I think, is not so hesitant, but holding everything secret.
They will let us know what they want us to know.
Okay,
There is far more. Okay. But what I feel, and to bring it back into our present day and our own society here on Earth,
right, is
that we're going through a transition here on Earth too. I mean, had we have had even just sitting here having this conversation maybe 40 years ago, they probably would have just taken it off the air. But what is good is that more people are becoming more aware. We're becoming to accept more things, Russ, today than we were many years ago.
Right.
The fact that maybe there is alien life out there, we're not alone, is we've seen it. It's a repetitive thing. And this is what I feel that they're telling me now.
Sally, why is it important to acknowledge that they're here? What's the message?
It's very important, Dawn, and thank you for that question, because if they had talked about this without any sort of disclosure at all, without even our conversation, maybe in the 30s or 40s, there would have been absolutely mass hysteria. But the more we open up to this, even with programs, let's call even Star Trek and programs like that, people are beginning to think. They don't have to believe it, but they're opening their mind to this. So eventually when we will see people, they are amongst us now, they're just not making themselves known, that they are from another planet. Let's not make this all spooky. Just let's say it's another planet and another part of the universe here. We won't be as scared because we're opening up a little bit more. Sure, there will be people that are going to say, what is going on? But we can't have that mass hysteria because I don't know what would happen if we did. It wouldn't be good. So the more we have programs like what we're doing and more movies, the more it comes out there, the better it's going to be. Does that answer?
Have you ever interviewed somebody who said they have near-death experiences? Have you talked to them? Well, what are they seeing? What are they?
Well,
What's
yes, because that's another interesting subject, because years ago people didn't even believe in near-death experiences. But if you take this and let's take it on a whole with people that are talking about the stories, as mine was too. I had an out-of-body. how do people from all different parts of our lifetime here, and all different people that have all different jobs or whatever they're doing, when they have this out-of-body experience, there is one common denominator. They all say the same thing. It might be a different part of when they talk about it, but ultimately it's the same thing happening.
What are they
to them.
saying?
Well, they leave their body, they can see their body, they can hear people, not necessarily an abduction. This is just a
Right.
near-death experience.
Right.
How do people, when they see this, or they can see themselves being operated on an operating table and they happen to die and come back, how does this happen? I mean, they don't know each other. They're all different people in this lifetime. This is what happened to me. I wasn't on an operating table, but I had a near-death experience and I started to project myself. That's what got me interested. And more people are coming forward with this, which is very important because, again, I don't want to keep on about the internet, but it's so important because now we can communicate with other people that have had the same experience as what I've had and as you have, I'm sure.
I don't
and
know.
Well,
Near-death
you don't
experience.
remember necessarily,
I
but we won't
don't-
bring you
I don't-
into it.
I don't remember anything.
Okay, but from a feeling, if you go with my feelings, I know that this has happened to you, Russ. So I know that there are people that now we can talk about in the open without being burnt at a stake.
Not a problem. But near-death experiences, what did you see? What impressed you about that whole experience, and what other people are talking about? What is that about?
Well, for me, it was amazing. It was like I was dreaming, and yet I knew I was there. And I had validation from my very first encounter with it was an out of body, not necessarily the near death, that I went to somewhere else. I was on another planet, but I didn't understand that at the time. And I was walking down like a little street, and there was a lady painting. And this was very, very important for me to bring this back now that I see it. And I'm watching her paint, and as she's painting, I've never been able to paint and never had a lesson in my life. But in this encounter that I had from another planet, she was telling me to go and get some crayons and start to paint myself. I was not a believer of this at all, but I brought that back into this lifetime here, that she told me to go and get some crayons, and suddenly I wasn't even conscious, but I knew I'd had this so-called dream. I started to do art. And today I have, as my viewers know, about 150, 160 pieces of art, which I can do basically blindfolded. I'm
right?
drawing. So
Wow.
she was there to give me a message. That's just my message. I became an artist, as I say, overnight. But many people, many people that have maybe fallen out of bed and they feel like a bang on their head. Some have come back that are mathematicians today. How do we explain that? It's a phenomena that we are beginning to understand. I am part of that journey.
Since you say you have been here more than one time, more than once, you said many times, dozens of times, why would you come back here? Can't you go other places? Or do you-
Probably, but I've chosen to come back to this very difficult planet.
So you're saying the human being, when they die, the soul leaves the body, it doesn't just disappear.
No,
It's-
it
It
doesn't.
lives on and on and on?
Yes, and today,
Because a lot of people don't believe that. It's once I die, that's it, all the
no,
things.
isn't that sad?
But
That's so
but
sad.
many people believe that.
But I'm finding, because they know my show now that I talk about it,
Right.
they all say to me, well, I do believe we go somewhere else. More and more people are opening up to this. I like the word transition.
Okay.
We don't die. And I just said this to a lady today, actually. She said, I always felt that. We transition into another
That's right.
dimension. But we come back. That's our choice. But we come back
But
here.
do you have to come back?
That's a difficult question, but we don't necessarily have to, but we choose to, because we have free will. We learn more, which I am understanding more from this particular planet than many other planets, because this is not easy.
The interesting thing is that many churches, Baptist, Methodist, Episcopal, on and on, Catholic, they don't teach that we were born and we
course not.
come back over and over and over again. No one teaches that.
Why would
So
they?
wouldn't that be in conflict to like 80%, 90% or more of the people here who have been raised in churches, and you telling them that they don't die, they come back over and over and over again? How do you take that? How do they view
Okay,
you?
it's easier today than it was 15, 20 years ago, Russ.
Okay.
But more people are becoming more aware today that there is something else. I'm not here to knock any type of religion.
No.
Absolutely not. A faith is a faith, and that's better than
Certainly.
having nothing. However, there is a majority of people now that may be pulling away a little bit from what I would call, and I don't want to be judged on this in any way, organized religion. Maybe there's a little bit more, because that's just someone telling you the way to behave. If
see.
we go into our true self, maybe we can go out of the box a little bit. And I'm not here to change anybody.
Right.
That's not my thing to do. But I started to look at this a different way. I was not brought up with religion. I
see.
didn't, you know, I believed that there was something, but I didn't know what. So maybe it was a little bit easier for me. But when you've been told about religion, and this is the way you think and this is the way you feel, again, I'm not here to criticize religion or
Right.
anybody. But if you begin to expand that a little
Is
bit.
it a conflict then? For me
Well-
to think in terms of, when I'm here, I can do the right thing, to be ethical oriented, have my morals, and be a good person as best you can, you know.
Well,
So-
that's important, because
okay.
ultimately I believe, and of course I have no proof, that we judge ourselves.
Okay.
So if we are good people,
Mm-hmm.
we don't, everybody's going to tell a little white lie. I'd be lying if I said I didn't. But if we behave and don't necessarily have to conform to everything that people say, but go with what you genuinely feel is good, or you're helping people, you're on the right track.
So you use your intuition?
Absolutely use your intuition.
But Sally, what about the relationships? You walk into a room, and 6 of you all have this bond. Is that on purpose? Is that part of the growth? I mean, you guys are talking about picking planets and what have you, but what about when you remember somebody from another life, and something about them, their mannerisms, something they say, something triggers a memory of, I know you from somewhere. Why is that happening?
That's beautiful, Freddie. That's here to expand our consciousness. That's the words I'm getting. To say that, how do I know this person? And I would go even one step further, because it's actually happened to me. I can get in a room and I can meet 3 or 4 people. And it's happened many times here, as you know, at the Brooklyn Cafe, where I'll meet people, but I kind of even know what they're going to say next. It's unless it's happened, it's hard to explain. But nothing is accidental in my mind. Everything, even if it's just a 5-minute connection with someone, it has a meaning. We don't know that, we let it go. But when it continues, and I've certainly had this down here, as you know, Fred and Dawn, it's happened, and with you, Russ.
Well, what happened with me?
That
How did
we connect with each other.
did we meet?
That connection
happened?
is very important.
What happened with us?
We connected right away. I was in the middle of discussing my book, and you walked in, but I felt that I definitely had known you,
Okay.
as I did with Freddie and Dawn that are sitting here right now. There was that connection, and I'd like to, if you could just maybe elaborate, Freddie or Dawn, on that, just so that they know what I'm talking about,
Right.
and maybe yourself too.
Big-
Well, when we introduced you and Russell, we were in Studio B, but I've known Russell almost close to 10 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like we never fall far from what we originally set out to do. When I first met him, it was talking about aliens and shows and all the people that came forward, including my stepdaughter, who became a co-host with Russell on the show. But what I get shocking about is when the 2 of you plus some other of the group is around, the people all seem, the new people that come in, like the singer today that we had, she says to me, where do I know these people from? Is that like coincidence, or is this something that magically is happening, or is it maybe just, it just happens?
Okay, I love that because it's happened to me so many times down here. There is that connection. It's not coincidental. The lady that was singing today, I felt her vibration. She felt mine. We've accumulated here. You know, we often hear about, and it's been written many times about the law of attraction. That's what's happening. But you have to be in kind of in tune with it and aware of it. But that's what happens here in the cafe. I mean, I could talk for hours about what's happened and the situations that have happened down here. This is not coincidental. They're accumulating around here. Maybe because we're on a show and we're able to talk about it publicly, which is very important. But everyone that I'm talking to, including you, Russ, I've met here. And this is not coincidence. I felt that when you introduced yourself and I was talking about something completely different, I was doing my story with my book.
Right.
I felt that I had known you from another lifetime, many, many lifetimes. Dawn and Freddie too. You know I'm not making this up, as you're not either. How does that happen? Because we're drawn, we've opened our minds a little bit. We're drawn to, and this to me is our meeting place. I'm absolutely convinced that this is our meeting place here.
I just want to go back to one of your lifetimes that Freddie was. Want to follow up, Freddie? But I want to go back to one of your lifetimes. You said you've been here so many times. We won't get to any numbers except dozens and dozens of times. But when I was reading the book, The 12th Planet by Zachariah Sitchin, who's a researcher, a scholar. He's gone now, but he's written, what, 12 books or more? You say you believe that in his book, he talked about the Anunnaki. Can you tell us who the Anunnaki happened to have been, and what part did you play?
Well, for myself personally, my guide told me that if I could read Zachariah Sitchin being one, or David Icke, and if I got interested in these books, then I was opening up. My very first book that I read was Zachariah Sitchin, but I had started drawing, and he was one of the people that came forward, although I now know that he had somebody telling him a little bit more about it, about how the Anunnaki first came down here. I didn't know this, but I'm drawing some of the things that he was talking about. He actually referred back to thousands and thousands of years ago. There are tablets that are actually here to prove what happened when the Anunnaki came down from their planet and found Earth themselves, and they came for a reason to help their planet with gold. I didn't know this story, but I'm drawing about it. So I have, going back thousands of years, a recollection of what he was talking about. So obviously I was interested in reading more of his book.
Okay. He was saying in that book that they didn't come to get the gold to spin, but to fix the atmosphere on their planet.
On their planet, yes.
Okay. So that's what they used the gold for.
Yes, they did. And they got us humans without, and of course this could be a whole nother show.
Sure.
But they got us to mine, not us, but the people that were here, to mine for their planet to take back. But for me, because I needed that bang on the head to wake up to this, I'm drawing rocket ships. I've never drawn, and suddenly I'm drawing rocket ships. Why am I drawing those rocket ships?
So you think you go back to that era?
I do personally. But my proof for myself is that I was able to draw, which I had never seen. I want to know about a rocket ship. And then later on, actually, Aldo, my guide, did present this story. And he also told me, because I had done sort of, I guess they call it a way station, where the rocket ship stopped halfway to this planet to fuel. But I'm drawing this. And I said, well, where was this? He actually, and again, it's up to the viewers to decipher whether they want to believe it or not, but he told me that the way station was on Mars. And to me today, this makes so much sense. From their planet to Mars to come down here to refuel on Mars. My proof for myself was that I was drawing this. I mean,
for people who may have some recollections way back in the subconscious mind that they might have been through similar experiences, what would you tell them to do? How would you help them?
just go with your gut feeling. Do research as much as you want. And I'm here. I am available for anybody that feels that they want to contact me.
So how do they contact
We'll
you?
show that on the show at the end. It's Sally Barnard. Oh, no, actually, it's Call Me Zena 1111 at gmail.com. But I'm going to make myself more known when my book comes out, and that they can contact me because the literature will be in the book.
What's the difference between the book that's coming out and the one that you have already written?
Well, my first one was, I was just documenting my travels,
see.
which is important, but it really doesn't tell the whole story of how this happened to where we are today. So my new book that's coming out, which should be available maybe, I'm going to say in about 2.5 months from now, and hopefully we're going to have a movie on this too.
Are you
So-
going to talk about the Anunnaki?
Yes, I will talk about
And
it.
your
I'm-
experiences back in,
Yes.
that's 400,000 or 500,000 years
yes,
ago.
Yes, because I'm ready to come forward. I'm ready to answer any questions.
So you believe that as your guide, Aldo, was trying to get you ready to help with this soft disclosure,
Yes, I do,
serious
Russ.
disclosure
I do, Russ.
for the rest of humanity.
Yes, absolutely.
To educate us, to make us feel a part of the infinite, if you will, rather than little people that we run around on this planet called Earth.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I believe, and again, I think our relationship as friends being here that we met was not coincidental. It was another step in my life, so-called, to go on with this story.
Right.
Because is there an ending to this story? No. I mean, even when we pass, we transition. But it's so important. Even if there's maybe 100 people listening, and maybe even 3 people begin
Sure.
to say to themselves, well, I can relate. I'm doing my job.
Well,
So
one person can make a difference.
one person can make
I
a
mean,
difference.
John Kennedy, he made a difference, would you
Absolutely,
say?
absolutely,
Yeah,
yes.
and others who have come
And many
along.
people, yes. And
Jesus,
unfortunately, many
Krishna,
people have been...
Buddha, Baha'u'llah,
yeah.
Moses.
Yes,
They
yes.
kind of made a difference in being
Yeah.
here.
We just sometimes interpret their
So
stories
what do
in
you
a different
think,
way.
what are you going to do to make a difference then for the rest of your life?
What I'm
do you
doing
think?
right now, I want to put my word out there. I want to explain what I have had happen to me. I can only tell people what's happened to me, and it's happened to me.
Okay.
So maybe they can relate.
Are you suggesting you're going to make a motion picture maybe?
Well, there is a motion picture in the works,
Oh.
actually. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes,
Right,
it's going to
right.
be the continuation of my new book, and the motion picture will be about my story and how, as
So
one
you have to do
person-
the storyboard and the picture, the whole 9 yards, and produce it?
Yes.
That's going to take capital.
No, I have someone writing it for me, so
Oh,
they're
you
very
do?
aware. They've been doing it now for about a year and a half, so they're
And they can
very
make
aware.
all the connections
Yes, yes. So
and raise the money and make that
yeah,
happen?
that's the
You
guy
can always
that,
do a GoFundMe program.
No, he actually has connections, so I'm okay as far as that's being
Is it?
taken care
Okay.
of. Yeah, thank you though.
No,
for-
the GoFundMe programs are really good. People will
Yeah,
raise
well,
even
we have
$20.
to get to that. We'll do it, whatever it takes, okay, whatever it takes. But right now, hopefully I'm being all right because he has the connections.
I see you got
Thank
2
you.
minutes. Do
Thank
you want
you.
to take another minute and kind of tell people how to get in contact with you?
Yes, again, it's Call Me Zena 1111 at gmail.com. Tune into my show every week, which is Call Me Zena on Facebook, please. I have a lot of followers today. I want many more. Please just go in and like my page, and then I can invite you, or just go in and I will always answer.
What's the significance of 1111 to you?
Oh, that's another show.
Oh, that's
Russ,
another
but
whole
It's
show?
a very
Oh, okay,
important
all right.
thing for me. 1111 is a very important number. Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
all right,
But that's another show. We'll talk about that.
And the
another
title
time.
of your next book? Did you get-
It's gonna be. Guess what? Call
What?
Me Zena.
Oh,
But
okay.
it's a continuation. So thank you very much.
Call Me Zena number 2.
Yes. And I think we're coming to the end of the show, right? Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. And please tune in again next week, or contact me if you have any questions whatsoever. I will try to answer every
And they
one
can
of
get in
them.
contact with you?
Yes.
Okay.
At callmezena1111 gmail.com.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, let me give the number here. 888-994-4995.
If they wanna
Studio
be-
A on a
If somebody
Monday.
might want to be on your program, you know, one of the people have an
Call
awakening
in.
and
Call
an
in today.
epiphany and said, hey, listen, I want to be on your program to tell my story.
Boy, you're on fire today, Russ. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. All right, thank you. Okay, see you later. See you next week. Coincidence or not, it's time to trust your intuition and knowings. Thank you for joining me through this journey of self-discovery and awakening with the help of my spirit guides. I'm Sally Barnard, and you can find my book, artwork, and contact through artbysallybarnard.com. Join us next week. This has been Call Me Zena. Join us next week. This has been Call Me Zena.